Hi, and welcome back to Joe's DIY. Back again with our final installment of my vinyl collection. Moving forward, we're going to basically cover everything after 1990 all the way up to the present time. I know that in my previous video I mentioned that I did not have any albums past 2001. That's actually not quite correct. There are a few exceptions to that rule that I've kept. So I'm going to go over those albums, and some of these have been presents that, my sister sometimes gives me vinyl presents that they're more kind of collector's items for me. That's why I haven't really opened them. So I'll get into that in a minute. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our final installment of my vinyl collection. These are not going to be in any particular order. I'm just going to show them to you as I have them stacked up. I don't have that many albums for a particular decade, so they're kind of mixed up. The first album that I wanted to show was kind of an interesting album that I found at a thrift store that I was kind of surprised to see. And that would be Death Row Greatest Hits, digitally remastered. So obviously going into the 90s, at the time there was a lot of transition from records over to CDs. So Death Row put out, I guess, this record. I don't know if it's kind of a collector's item or something meant for the DJs. But I did find it, and the records are in decent shape. And it basically has all the greatest hits from the 90s era of Death Row Records. So I don't know how much longer after Tupac and so forth they lasted, but it's basically a compilation of all the records and singles that were put out by different artists. And there's a good look at the artists there. So yeah, Nothing But a G Thing, from The Chronic, Gin and Juice, from Snoop Doggy Dogg's Doggy Style. Afro Puffs, I remember that song from actually the soundtrack to the movie Above the Rim. Natural Born Killers, I was kind of I'm not going to go too much into some of the titles of these songs. Obviously, this video would get blocked by YouTube, so you can look up at the listings of songs on your own. But definitely a good compilation here of all the records that were released for Death Row at the time. Next up is a single album. I would say that a lot of these albums that I found are basically DJ, or they're meant for DJs to play on turntables, and this is why I got Eminem My Name Is. So this is like the single version of My Name Is. So obviously this was kind of like his breakout hit. Yeah. And I kind of like the little cover that they did there with the name tag. Yeah, so the real Slim Shady. Okay. Moving on is an album by one of my favorite bands from the 80s. And this was the first album they released in the 90s, to be exact, 1990. And I love this album. I would say this would probably be my second favorite album other than Kick. And that would be In Excess X. And this is actually the English pressing of this album because I had it imported from the UK. So very cool album cover there. Kind of makes Michael Hutchence looks kind of like a superhero. And there's the back of it. So a lot of good songs here. Suicide Blonde, Disappear, Side By My Side, Bitter Tears, Know the Difference. So a lot of good songs in this album. And if you ever seen them play songs from this album live, that would be that I think they made like a live album. I forget the name of it. But yeah, it was a great show, and I highly recommend it if you're a fan of INXS. Next up is an album that I mainly got my wife because I'm not a huge fan of this artist, and that would be Britney Spears' I'm a Slave for You. So this was the album that I guess she put out in the early 2000s, and these I guess this is considered one of her remixed versions of this song. And there's the backside, no pun intended, of the album. And yeah, I thought it was a gatefold because it is kind of thick. So it's got all kinds of different remixes here of I'm a Slave for You. So yeah. So my wife wanted this album, so that's why I have it in my record collection, because from time to time she'll pick it up and play it. Next up, it was an album that I was kind of shocked to have found at a Goodwill, because it's kind of one of those albums that you never expect to find there, and I was so excited to pick it up, and that is David Bowie's Black Star. So there's the cover, and the actual album has like a cutout, and there's kind of like a piece of plastic kind of separating the vinyl from, you know, the actual album, and it is a gatefold. Yeah, so there's a good picture of David Bowie there. And unfortunately, this is David Bowie's last album before he passed away. And I'll be honest, when I heard this album, there was a lot of hype to it, because again, it's basically David Bowie's last hurrah, I guess. And I have mixed feelings about this album, because it doesn't really sound like anything I remember from his earlier work in the 80s and 70s. I did not follow David Bowie's career past, I guess, Let's Dance. So, I mean, I was kind of shocked to kind of hear the music. There's no real singing, you know, there's like a lot of sampling, a lot of electronic stuff going on. I'm not saying that it's a bad album, but it's just not what I was expecting. I probably would need to give this another listen to kind of appreciate it more. But yeah, I'm glad that I do own it, so that at least I have the choice to do so. So yeah, David Bowie, Black Star. Next up is a singles album, and this is Slick Rick Children's Story. So this is kind of I would say it's probably one of his most famous songs that always plays on old school hip hop stations. So there's a good picture of Slick Rick. And there's a good picture of the back. So yeah, can't go too much into this because it's not really safe for work. But yeah, if you like hip hop, and Slick Rick is definitely one of those original rappers from the 80s. Next up is Kid Frost, La Raza, or La Raza. So this is an artist, I think a rapper, that I think he's from the San Gabriel Valley. So I guess we're kind of close to each other. I have not listened to any music from him in the last couple of years. I don't know if he still makes music, but this is a single that was kind of in the radios, Power 101 or Power 106 in the early 90s or late 90s. So there's a good picture of the back. So yeah, Kid Frost, La Raza. Next up is a band that I have not listened to. I found this record in a Goodwill, and I don't know much about it. I picked it up because it is a new band, and who knows, it might be good. I decided to just take the risk and get it. It wasn't a very expensive album. I think it was like $3 or something like that. Never heard of West Coast, but I'm probably gonna give this album a hear when I get a chance. Pretty plain cover, and there's the back of it. So on my to-do list. Next up is another album that I actually picked up with that one, and this is actually a new band as well. The Pains of Being Pure at Heart. So don't know anything about this band. I would say that it's probably, kind of punkish garage music. Garage rock. And there's the backside of the album. I think that the reason I picked this album up is I think it is a little bit rare. When I looked at the prices for what it cost, I think they were selling it on eBay for around $20 to $30. So I think this is not a very common album. So I picked it up. I'll probably give it a listen to because it is a new album, new vinyl. Next up is a band that I've heard a lot about. It's one of those Brit pop bands from the mid to early '90s, and it's the Charlatans UK. The only one I know. So I think this is a single. Yeah, it's a single. Or it's an EP, something like that. And I don't know much of the Charlatans' music. There's the backside. But I have heard of the Charlatans, so I picked it up to listen to this. So I'm not able to make recommendations right now because I haven't listened to the album. Next up is Nirvana, Nevermind. This is sealed. Still haven't opened it because I'm, not sure if I'm going to keep it or sell it. Or I have the CD, and I actually have the CD that's kind of like the box set, sort of, that has like different versions of different songs and different takes. So I don't see the point of opening this. I probably should because it might start warping. But I think the vinyl's still in pretty good shape. So, but anyways, there's not much that can be said about Nevermind. I actually, I should probably cover that. When you watch this, it'll probably be blocked because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. Nirvana's Nevermind, and obviously Smells Like Teen Spirit and Bloom, Come As You Are, Breed, Lithium, Polly. This is kind of an album that you're going to be able to listen to from beginning to end because it's a classic basically. There's a good look at Nirvana there. And this is unfortunately my only Nirvana record that I own at this time. So yeah, Nevermind. Another album that I own is Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. If you don't know who they are, they basically a group that formed off New Edition from the 80s. That was the band or the group that Bobby Brown was in before he went solo. Poison is a song that very much played in the radio in the early 90s. It's got that kind of R&B with hip hop mixed in with it. I guess that would be the way they would describe themselves. And this is the single, Poison. I think there's maybe 2 versions of the song here. Okay, and then so I got one more before I go into my soundtracks. This is an album that I picked up because it was really cheap, and I was just kind of curious about Jack White's solo work. So I picked it up. It's not the best album, but it was, I think, only about $5 sealed. I did open it. And I only listened to it once, and I'm pretty sure I only listened to it once because I really wasn't that much into it. It's not his best work. I think that's what basically the comments regarding this album mentioned. I picked it up just out of curiosity, and I've added it to my vinyl. So yeah, Jack White, Boarding House Reach. Okay, so now getting into the soundtracks, I have 3 soundtracks that I've recently, they've been recent releases. The first one is going to be the Black Mirror soundtrack. This is a show that's on Netflix. I'm not sure how many people have seen it. I know it was pretty popular a couple of years ago, but it's got basically very bizarre stories in relating to technology. It's basically technology and humanity and how the effects on each other, create these storylines and things like that. It's kind of an anthology type of show. And I really enjoyed the show, and my sister decided to buy me the soundtrack. I'm not really familiar with the music here. I know that Pain Addict is a band that made some of the music. Monkey Loves You, or Monkey Heart You is another, and then Digital Ghost. So I've never opened this because I see it more as a kind of a collector's record to own. I probably should eventually, because I know that if you keep records sealed, they eventually start warping. Uh, my room here doesn't really get that hot, but yeah, I probably should eventually open it. But yeah, Black Mirror soundtrack. And then the next two, I think, is probably my favorite albums from the last couple of years that were released, and it's actually soundtrack music from a show from the late 80s all the way up to actually the show has been rebooted by Netflix in the last year or so, and I was very excited that they actually pulled this one back from the dead because I think this show possibly will never have to really end because they will always have cases and things that they want to report on, and the show that I'm talking about is Unsolved Mysteries. This is yeah, so this is the first release. I think this is volume one. One of my favorite shows growing up as a kid. Scared a lot of people. Never really scared me. I thought the music, however, was a little bit scary. It pumps through those analog speakers very loudly when you're a kid and listening to it in a little full screen TV. But yeah, I was very excited to find out that this was being released. I've always been a fan of the soundtrack. I always wanted to own a CD copy of it. No CD was ever released, so I'm happy when the Unsolved Mysteries soundtrack was coming out. That was one of the great things that actually got me into collecting vinyl because I just wanted to get this record. I'll go ahead and pull it up from the sleeve. I do have it did ship with a protective sleeve, so. And this comes on colored vinyl. It's got like blue colored vinyl. But it is a gatefold, so I'll go ahead and show you the inside. And absolutely, this is what would typically be the scene in people's houses, watching the show and that narration by Robert Stack. And here's a good look at the track listing. I mean, there's dozens of versions of the theme song along with some of the soundtrack from the show that you would hear background music. It's very scary. I mean, if you're listening to this on your own in your apartment with your vinyl with your record player, it is kind of scary. But I was over the moon that this came out, and as well as the volume 2, I guess. This is all the songs that didn't come out on this record that were released, and I think this one even has this is a double album, so it even has even more songs from the show there. And let me see if I can open it. This one's also a gatefold, and it's got kind of like a UFO theme, which is really cool. And let me see if I can pull out one of the vinyls. But yeah, this comes in blue colored vinyl, which is very cool looking. So yeah, absolutely over the moon that this was released, and I'm so happy to been one of the people to be able to buy it. I'm more fond of volume 2 because it does have the theme song of the updates, which was one missing. I was a bit disappointed that on volume 1 they didn't add it on there, but it was added on volume 2, so I was very happy about that. And that is it for all my vinyls. So finally we're at the end of this series. I have to say that I'm kind of happy that we got through that because it was a whole lot of vinyls that I had to share. But this is in gratitude to all my subscribers and all the support that I've received from your views and so forth. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, and I'm very grateful. Thank you. And I will continue making videos. Hopefully we'll be able to make some improvements on the production. I know that going into the 1,000 subscribers, I would really like to get to 10,000 at some point. So I definitely have to improve on the production, but it's something that requires more of my time. But with better quality and less quantity, you might be able to get more views. So who knows? I'm certainly not aiming for it, but I'm more concerned with making good videos and good content. So I will try my best to do that, and from here over to the 10,000 subscribers that I'm hoping to accomplish. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I hope that you have a wonderful day and that you enjoyed this video. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.